Right now, you're going to be watching this video on some sort of screen, whether it be like a phone or a computer or tablet or something. And if you look around right now, you might have something like this, a Kindle. I personally really like using for reading. Uh, and that just shows that technology is all around us and it's here to make our lives easier and better and more convenient in lots of cases. Uh, but maybe not in some cases. And I'm going to talk about with these things, Kindles and just e-readers, how that could be more damaging than beneficial. I'm personally someone who experiences a decent amount of uh, DES, which is basically digital eye strain, probably because I read a lot off of electronic things like my laptop or my Kindle. And something I've noticed helps is to read from printed sources in less of digital or like electronics. Um, and sometimes just printing off school assignments helps a lot with this. And I think that some other people maybe could do this as well, and hopefully that would help your scenario. And maybe if you think that you prefer electronic sources, uh, hopefully by the end of this you'll be able to see that maybe that might not be the case for how you're actually comprehending reading. So first of all, screens have lots of technological benefits like uh, having graphics or displays and stuff to help visualize with education, which is very good. Uh, but most electronic documents don't necessarily utilize this technological feature. So it just makes it so when you have lots of uh, research papers that are being put online, people are just reading it as a digital document with no extra like visual things to add to it. So it just basically is the same thing as reading from printed text with some extra flaws to it, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Um, and I also want to say that I think having a mixed diet would be very good. Irene Pigton from the National Literacy Trust basically talks about this, that there's a report that students perform academically better with a mixed diet of both electronic reading as their source and printed text. But printed text does have more benefits for me personally. I'll talk about that too. Ferris Jobber wrote an article for Scientific American basically talking about the psychological process of reading, where our brains associate letters and words with being physical objects. And because of that, it's like he brings up an analogy of it's like you're hiking through woods. Um, and with reading printed text, you are taking in everything as you're walking by. You're like able to see like a rock or something that you walk past, and you visualize that and you comprehend where it's at, and you're like spatially aware. But with electronic reading, it's like things are just flashing by because you're just scrolling through and you're comprehending a little bit less information. Gemma Walsh from the Australian Library and Information Association basically did a screen and paper research review, basically talking about how previous findings show that reading from printed sources is more efficient at transposing or transitioning episodic memory to your semantic memory. So basically, your recollection of experiences reading to your general knowledge and general like facts that you know. It's more efficient when you read printed text than when you read uh, electronic sources. Another thing is a research paper by Amy Shepard and James Wolfson that basically talks about DES, which is digital eye strain, like I talked about earlier. And they talk about some of the symptoms of it. So it's like you can have headaches, dry eyes, maybe drowsiness, blurred vision, or just general discomfort around your eyes. And reading from printed sources tends to help with this, like help it alleviate it. And if you lessen your amount of reading from digital sources, then that can actually alleviate some of those symptoms that you can have from DES. For me personally, I have experienced that. So another thing, if you might be the type of person that prefers reading electronic documents over like paper. I personally am kind of like that. But a Business Insider article by Patricia Alexander and Lauren Singer basically shows that that might not be the case. They did a study on students who basically said that they prefer reading electronic sources uh, or like electronic texts, but when they studied them, they actually found out that the people who read the same source with the same general knowledge level, the people who read from a digital document actually were reading at faster speeds and comprehending less information than the people who were reading from the printed text. So this just kind of shows that there's a psychological process where people might be a little bit overconfident with reading electronic texts versus printed text. Uh, so overall, I would say that reading from physical books is probably better for like your eye health and for your just general comprehension of what you're reading. And right now things are kind of weird with COVID going on because we're all at home and it's kind of hard to go out and get like your own physical books. But I would say if you have that option or if you have like a printer,